And I'm back. Let's talk about Lex Luthor. Okay, I love. Oh crap, Kevin Spacey's Lex Luthor in this way more than Gene Hackman. I think Gene Hackman does a fantastic performance, but he's too out there. He's too silly, goofy, and I don't like that kind of villain, especially when you're gonna have a guy who's going up against Superman. Once again, of course, I don't like Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor more mainly because of the story and the fact that there's no way that him and Otis and Miss Tessmacher could bring down Superman in that way. They have a chunk of kryptonite, but they can't do that. Like when they build their island that is gonna flood the world, all they have to do is say, "Lex Luthor, you're under arrest," and there goes his plans. He has nothing to fight back with. Kevin Spacey's, on the other hand, I think he's funny. He's got a lot of antics that are really interesting to watch, but he's also evil. He friggin' shanks Superman. I mean, who shanks Superman? Lex Luthor shanks Superman. That's who. But we've had him for 3 movies. We need to move on. We need a villain. For a while, I tried to deny this argument. But we need a villain that Superman can fight. You could use Lex Luthor, and I'll cover that in a second when I talk about the action. Not to mention, his plan doesn't make a lot of sense. Like in the other one, couldn't someone just stop him? He's got this huge island in Superman Returns made of all this nasty rock. Who's gonna want to live there? Who's gonna buy it from him? And there are countless ways in which he can be stopped. So I don't think that makes sense. Now, about the action. This is where the villain thing comes into hand. There are tons of villains in Superman where it's not going to be Dragon Ball Z fighting, where he fights and flies through the air, punch, 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 shoot. You have Metallo, who has kryptonite. You have Bizarro, who's hilarious. You have Darkseid. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Or Brainiac. Mark Waid. I think it was Mark Waid. No, Jeff Johns. About a year ago, did a story arc uh, in his in a run on Superman about Brainiac. I bought all his issues just because it was that issue. It was so good. It was the non-pacifist Superman, the tough guy, the upstanding citizen, the moral paragon of integrity Superman. And it had um, Brainiac. Brainiac in this, he was used as a physical presence, like, punch punch Superman, and a mental villain, much like Lex Luthor. Go with that. We are done with Lex Luthor. That's the problem, is they wanted to make it too much like the Rich Fountain once, and we got to use a villain again. Now, I think Lex Luthor could have worked, even though I would have been completely sick and tired of Lex Luthor by now. If, once again, Jeff Johns did this in his Up and Away story arc of Superman, once coinciding with the Superman Returns story, with Superman Returns movie in the comics, what happens is, I think, I haven't read the whole thing. I came in really late, like last issue late. But Lex has all these crystal robots made out of the crystals that come from Superman's homeworld, destroying the city, and Superman fights them. You could have taken that storyline from the comic and put it in the movie and would have done the same thing, and you give Superman something to fight. Really, the problem is not that, among the fact that really, when you think about it, nothing happens in it. Very few things happen in the movie plot-wise, plot points. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. There is almost no action in that movie. There's the opening plane sequence, which granted I think is amazing, especially on the big screen, especially for the first time. I was just tossed asunder after that. The word when that scene was done, but as time goes on, it becomes predictable and not so amazing to watch. But there's no action after that. He stands up to machine gun fire. Cool. I would have liked to have seen him do more stuff. And then he lifts an island into the sky. Admittedly, pretty cool, especially when it's the first time, when you don't see it coming. But afterwards, there's no It's my problem I have with Tim Burton's Batman movie. Not all movies need action. Some movies can get along just fine with action, but when you have a character who's designed to fight, to save people, to get into combat with people who are doing, who mean ill for humanity, when they're violent people, good plus evil equals confrontation, and confrontation is gonna result in combat. Especially when you have a superhero movie, you are going to have action. And that's the problem with Batman is Tim Burton's just not an action director. He can't orchestrate a scene. He can put guys and make them fight each other, but it's not. It doesn't have that big grandiose chase excitement that like the Dark Knight movies have, where everything is so down to earth that everything is so epic. Like when Batman gets that garbage truck and shoves it into the ceiling. Awesome in the Dark Knight. But yeah, Superman Returns doesn't have that. And what you're left with is really a well written, well acted movie, but just not very exciting. Not something that grabs people, pulls them in. I love it. I love it in a movie that has action. The action stems from the conflict, from the story, where you're going through this story, especially in like The Dark Knight. You know, you watch this movie possibly multiple times, the first one at least, and then a couple years later, this one comes out, and you're invested in these characters. You care about them because they're well acted, well written, well rounded out, likable people, and then they're put in these life or death situations. You want them to succeed. You want them to come out on top. So action can be a storytelling piece. It's not just there to draw people in and get people yelling and screaming because there's violence on screen. It's not about the violence. It's about the confrontation that I love, like in Lord of the Rings. It's like the ultimate, or Narnia, it's the ultimate confrontation being good and evil. You need that, especially in a superhero movie where good and evil are so definitely brought down. Now, you know, fighting, of course, doesn't work in certain movies like, oh, good lord, I don't know, Aquila and the Bee, Juno, 12 Angry Men, because it's not a place. It's not, there aren't violent people in that trying to do something diabolical. But yeah, so that's a big issue because really you don't have. I watching that and thinking about it before I watched it again, you don't have a lot happening in that movie. From you have Superman comes back, he stops a falling plane, and you have this long, very long process of Lex Luthor messing around with the kryptonite stuff. Those sequences in which he uses them last for like 10 minutes before finally the plane crashes or the island appears. That's just unnecessary length that really bothers me. It's there aren't plot points. They're just people talking about Superman a lot. Plane crash, kryptonite. Whoa! What happens after that? Lois gets kidnapped. That's like 2 hours after the plane crash, after the last pivotal plot point. So I'm gonna get off of this before I start going off more on it. I think most of this video has been talking about that, but I also want to talk about Kate Bosworth and um, Superman, um, Brandon Routh, completely miscast. Not only does Superman like not, I don't Superman doesn't talk in this movie. I heard someone say it's because they were afraid that Brandon Routh can't act. I don't know. I haven't seen him in much. He was awesome in Scott Pilgrim, but Superman doesn't talk enough in this. There isn't enough of Superman talking. Basically, I want to hear him talk. He talks about how the world needs a savior, and that is cool. But I want in The Dark Knight and Batman Begins, they are do so well because you have a Playboy Bruce Wayne, which is his disguise, Batman, which is also disguise, and you have the Bruce Wayne in the middle, who is Bruce Wayne really is, the one whose parents were killed, the one who journeyed the world, getting skills and knowledge to become a crime fighter. That's the Bruce Wayne that we care about. Batman is cool for action, and Playboy Bruce Wayne is good as a disguise. We need a Kal-El. Like Kal-El, I mean, we need Superman, who he is with Lois, who he is with his parents, who he, um, you know, assumedly would be with the Justice League. Not that I would want that. Who Superman really is. We have Clark Kent the disguise, we have Superman the disguise when he's becoming Superman, but we need Kal-El, we need the medium character, who he really is. The one who's actually in love with Lois. The one who he is when he's with his mom, when he's with the people who know his secrets, who know who he really is. And that's part of the problem is the Clark Kent disguise. I think it's funny that he's a nerd and everything, but he just doesn't have personality. That's that is to me a big problem too. Kate Bosworth is another problem. Most of the cast is way too young. This is supposed to be Returns. This is 5 years after Superman left, which is might have possibly is 5 years after Superman started. They should be 10 years older than however old they're supposed to be in uh, Superman the movie. But they look so young. They're so young. Especially Kate Bosworth and Brandon Routh. They look so young. And Kate Bosworth, I do not like in this movie. She is very pretty. A very, very pretty girl. But that doesn't save her from not nailing the role of Lois. She's too annoying. Bratty. I remember in an Entertainment Weekly article about the movie, they said she seems more like a corporate executive than she does a news reporter, which I agree with totally. She doesn't. A friend of mine calling you out, you know who you are if you watch this. He commented, "Oh, but Kate Bosworth is so much better looking than oh my gosh, um, the actress who played her in the original movie." That's not important. I mean, the point is she nailed part of Lois Lane. I like Margaret Kidder. I like her character more in the original movie. I can see why Superman would fall in love with her. She's intelligent, strong, smart, sassy. Eh, I can understand that, but not so much with Kate Bosworth. So it's a character miscast and a miswrite. I'm glad I got all this out. This needed to be said. Now I have it down that I can refer to it because I can't remember things good. Probably shouldn't have said that. But really, for everything that movie does well, it does badly. Every step it takes forward, it takes a step back, so it's in the exact same place it began. I cannot wait for what Mark Millar or Miller might possibly do with this, and now that Christopher Nolan is possibly overlooking it. I cannot wait. I think a lot of the problem stems from director Bryan Singer. He made some good X-Men films, yes, but they weren't X-Men to me. I like them a lot. They didn't seem like X-Men. Then X-Men 3 was X-Men-y, but wasn't that good. It's a problem, I think, honestly, when you get a gay guy to direct Superman. I don't want that to sound offensive, but it's true. Superman is the epitome of the American man. He is tough, strong, and I don't think Bryan Singer grasps that. Not to mention, he's not a comic book fan. That's what happens when you get the guy who directed Barbershop to direct the Fantastic Four. Anyway, I'm looking forward to the future of Superman movies, and I want a Superman movie so bad because I want to see. It's one thing to open up a page and see Superman on the page, but it's another thing entirely to look on the screen and to see up in the sky. That's man flying. That's Superman. That's all I gotta say about that. This is the Extraordinary Man signing off. I'll see you next time.